But the divergence wrought by the Christian Revolution wasn't limited to sex. Another decisive difference concerned attitudes toward the city or toward the political order. In paganism, devotion to the gods and loyalty to the city were basically one and the same thing. Christians, by contrast, distinguished sharply between God and Caesar. They were commanded to be loyal to both authorities, true, but their highest allegiance was to God. For pagans, this attitude was corrosive of the civic religion that supported the city, and they sometimes punished the followers of Jesus by sending them off to the Colosseum or the mines. Christians found this treatment unjust, naturally, but also puzzling. In a protest addressed to the rulers of the Roman Empire, the feisty Christian lawyer Tertullian protested the Christians were in most respects no different from other Romans. Quote, "We sojourn with you in the world, abjuring neither forum, nor slaughterhouse, nor bath, nor booth, nor workshop, nor inn, nor weekly market, nor any other places of commerce. We sail with you and fight with you and till the ground with you." Tertullian went on, "Without ceasing, for all our emperors we offer prayer. We pray for life prolonged, for security to the empire, for protection to the imperial house, for brave armies, a faithful senate, a virtuous people, the world at rest, whatever as man or Caesar and emperor would wish. And yet, with our hands thus stretched out and up to God, you rend us with your iron claws, hang us up on crosses, wrap us in flames, take our heads from us with the sword, let loose the wild beasts upon us." But the problem, basically, was that the kind of allegiance that Tertullian and other Christians offered was not what Roman authorities required. In many settings, the authorities demanded that subjects sacrifice to the gods, including the divine emperors. Christians sometimes complied, but often refused. In this respect, as with sexual morality, the Christian stance might seem to the pagans almost incomprehensible. After all, virtually nothing was being asked of them, or so it seemed. Cambridge historian Keith Hopkins imagines an educated pagan pressing the question on a Christian friend, "Why can't you compromise? It surely wouldn't be too dreadful if someone told you Christians to take an oath by an emperor or pour a simple libation to the emperor's health. Could you just participate in our public festivals for the sake of form?" More generally, it seems that many Romans were or would have been willing to accept the Christian God into the polytheistic pantheon on the same terms of reciprocity under which so many other deities had been absorbed, to form a sort of proto-Rawlsian overlapping consensus. We'll accept your God if you'll accept ours. What could be more fair than that? In this spirit, the Emperor Alexander Severus actually did place a statue of Jesus in his private chapel along with some other gods. There was even a rumor that Alexander intended to erect a temple to Jesus. And yet the more committed Christians were unwilling to accept inclusion on these terms. They understood, even if the pagans couldn't, that to do so would be in essence to repudiate their faith. As Lactantius explained, if the honor paid to Christ is shared by others, he altogether ceases to be worshipped, since his religion requires us to believe that he is the one and only God. So the general Roman policy, benignly understood by Romans as, "We'll accept you and your God if you'll accept ours," inevitably sounded to the Christians like insulting double talk. "We'll accept your religion if you will effectively repudiate it and accept our pagan religion instead." Given this Christian refusal, Roman authorities naturally responded harshly. In the early centuries, the response took the form of episodic but savage persecutions. In the 4th century, these conflicts escalated into a back-and-forth struggle. Early in that century, in the Great Persecution, the Emperor Diocletian and his colleagues attempted to eradicate Christianity, inflicting savage punishments. Then fortunes flipped, as Constantine and his successor Constantius first commanded toleration and later began to confer special privileges on Christians. Upon Constantius's death, though, things turned again. The flamboyantly pagan Emperor Julian attempted to bring about a revival of paganism, including by barring Christians from teaching in the schools. Some historians believe that if Julian had lived longer, his pagan revival might well have succeeded. But Julian was killed in an ill-advised invasion of Persia, and later emperors episodically returned to favoring Christianity. By the end of the century, Christianity had officially at least prevailed. And how did Christianity achieve this political success? Some historians point to coercive prohibitions issued by Christian emperors. But other historians observe that these laws were so little enforced that they seem to have gone almost entirely unnoticed by prominent pagans at the time. It seems that the decisive struggle occurred not so much through coercion as through public symbols. So Christian emperors built impressive churches, often on the sites previously occupied by pagan temples. Julian, the pagan emperor, reversed this process, and he was in turn reversed by his Christian successors. By dominating the city skyline, so to speak, these churches and temples communicated to citizens the character of the city they inhabited. One especially contentious symbol was the so-called Altar of Victory, a pagan shrine that had been prominently placed next to the door of the Senate House by the first emperor, Augustus. The Christian emperor Constantius ordered the altar removed. The pagan emperor Julian had it restored. Later, the Christian emperor Gratian again had the altar taken down, and so the pagan senator Symmachus wrote an eloquent plea requesting restoration of the altar, a plea that was in turn stoutly opposed by Milan's influential bishop Ambrose. All of the disputants in this controversy recognized the symbolic importance of the shrine. We might say that they implicitly understood the theme of a more recent, much admired book by Benedict Anderson called Imagined Communities. What transforms a collection of people into a community is not simply the fact of geographic proximity. Communities are conjured up and consolidated, rather, in people's imaginations, in their minds and souls. People constitute a community because they think of themselves or imagine themselves as a community. And the imaginings that create a community form around and in response to and express and maintain themselves in public symbols. Symbols express the community, in other words, but they also help to constitute the community. It's a crucial point, and we'll return to it when we consider contemporary controversies over public symbols, like the words under God in the Pledge of Allegiance and crosses on public property. By controlling the public symbols, Christians like Ambrose managed to reconstitute the empire as Christian, officially at least. It was a portentous transformation and one that we've been living with ever since. Jan Osman argues that the shift from the this-worldly religiosity of antiquity to the monotheistic faiths of later Judaism and Christianity, quote, has had a more profound impact on the world we live in today than any political upheaval.